So, how good was Francesco Bernoulli? I mean, he held his own against Lightning McQueen in the World Grand Prix. According to his official bio, he was also the top race car in all of Europe, and he made it extremely clear that every time he drove onto a course, he planned to win. But as a Formula One racer, how does he really stack up against the race cars from the Piston Cup? Was he as great as he said he was, or did he never stand a chance against Lightning McQueen? Well, today, by going through his background, his specs, and analyzing how he did in the World Grand Prix, I think I've found the answer for you. Now, to begin, Francesco is actually a newer vehicle than Lightning McQueen, and it seems like he may have taken some inspiration from how Lightning was constructed. As a 2009 Formula FB1 prototype, Francesco was constructed with cutting-edge experimental machinery. He was built to be the pride and joy of Italian racing, with as much speed and power as he could possibly output. And this was a relatively new approach in the world of cars. You see, while there was a history of race cars who were modified versions of specific models of vehicles, Lightning broke the mold when he was produced in 2006. Instead of coming off of a manufacturer's assembly line, he was a handmade, one-of-a-kind, custom-built Piston Cup race car. And with every component and design decision intended to make Lightning the greatest race car alive, he quickly became one of the most famous and successful race cars in history. Not to be outdone though, it seems Europe's response to Lightning McQueen was Francesco Bernoulli, which makes sense. When Lightning McQueen came onto the racing scene, he was considered to be the fastest race car in the world. But I don't think vehicles across the globe were just going to accept that. In fact, I think Francesco's creation was a direct result of Lightning coming onto the scene and dominating the sport. Of course, to construct a completely unique racing prototype that could have the potential to beat Lightning McQueen though, vehicles would have needed a lot of capital and experience in the sport, and it seems there was no better place to find those things than within Francesco's hometown, Portocorsa. You see, Portocorsa was described by the commentators of the World Grand Prix as the crown jewel of the Italian Riviera. With the city's casinos, beaches, and racing presence, it was considered a playground for the ultra-wealthy and attracted influential and powerful vehicles from across the globe. And I think when Francesco was constructed, his manufacturers tapped into the resources and prestige of the region to develop him into a highly competitive race car. In fact, when he was born, he immediately became one of the fastest race cars in the world. You see, according to the Essential Guide for Cars 2, every inch of Francesco's body was streamlined for fast, efficient racing. With a 2.4-liter V8 engine with 18,500 RPM and 750 horsepower, he was fast, even compared to Lightning McQueen. Okay, but while Francesco was fast, he wasn't 300% faster than Lightning McQueen. Francesco's highest reported speed was 220 miles per hour, which is actually the same maximum speed that has ever been recorded for Lightning McQueen. But outside of the World Grand Prix, Lightning's typical top speed was around 200 miles per hour. So sure, there were moments in Lightning's career where he was supposedly able to keep up with Francesco, but those were rare and incredibly straining moments. The truth is that Lightning just could not sustain Francesco's speed, and when it came to acceleration, it wasn't even close. While Lightning McQueen's 0 to 60 was 4 seconds, Francesco's was 2.5 seconds. Francesco was just a faster race car than Lightning McQueen, which meant that Lightning McQueen's reign as the fastest and most dominant race car alive was threatened just 3 years after his rookie season. But Francesco wasn't just given a position on the world stage, he earned it. You see, from the start of his life, Francesco was raised just outside of the famous Monza racecourse, and frequently he would sneak onto the track with his friends to race. Later on, Francesco would use those experiences to easily win the amateur circuit, and when he was unleashed into the Italian Grand Prix, which included his home course in Portocorsa, he was propelled into the spotlight when he won and became an international Formula Racer champion. And don't worry, he would not let his competitors forget it. With his speed, his attractive open wheels, and his natural confidence and charisma, he became an extremely popular racer. He was even considered to be the most famous race car in Europe. So when the World Grand Prix was introduced in 2011, he became the favorite to win just 2 years after he was constructed. The world no longer believed that Lightning McQueen stood alone at the top of the racing world. According to the Essential Guide for Cars 2, Lightning McQueen and Francesco Bernoulli were seen as the two greatest race cars on the planet. But was one actually better than the other? Did Francesco ever prove himself to be the best in the world? Well, while Francesco may have had some impressive stats, the truth is that he was not a perfect race car. Like during the World Grand Prix, when we saw him compete in Japan, he absolutely took advantage of the straightaways on that course. Those long stretches where he could fully accelerate to his incredible top speed was where he thrived. But it became very clear that he couldn't handle the dirt section and was only able to pass Lightning in the final lap because McQueen mistakenly took Mater's advice while he was involved in a case of international espionage. Sure, Francesco was able to beat Lightning on that day, but beyond this one encounter where Lightning made an obvious mistake, Francesco has never been shown to beat Lightning McQueen again, even when he had all of the advantages stacked in his favor. You see, Francesco should have dominated on the second course in the World Grand Prix since they were competing on Francesco's home course in Portocorsa. The race even ended with a straightaway into the finish line. That's what Francesco is optimized for as a race car, and he knew it was coming, but he still couldn't secure the win. And of course, when Francesco took on Lightning on his home course in the Radiator Springs Grand Prix, McQueen took the victory again. You know, I think it's one thing for Francesco to not be as versatile as Lightning McQueen. I mean, Francesco was not designed for all terrain and all courses, and it's unrealistic to expect him to compete from that perspective when Lightning was trained by one of the greatest dirt track race cars to have ever lived. But Francesco just couldn't beat Lightning McQueen, so it's hard to take him seriously as a true contender for the top spot in the racing world, especially when he's made claims that he doesn't have a racing strategy. Of course, these two world-class race cars traditionally do not compete against one another, so it doesn't necessarily make sense to compare them. But to be fair, Francesco started it himself. When he joined the World Grand Prix, called out Lightning McQueen, and made claims that he could defeat him, Francesco was asking for the world to pit him against Lightning McQueen in the history books. He called for us to decide who was the greatest race car in the world, and he was just unable to definitively take that spot. But if Francesco Bernoulli wasn't the best in the world, how good was he? Well, early into his career, he became the pride of European racing. Through the prowess of Italian racing engineers, Francesco became an F1 prototype filled with advanced machinery that immediately propelled him to the top of the racing world. His speed dazzled vehicles and made him a ferocious competitor, and he quickly became a contender as one of the greatest race cars competing. But of course, stats don't tell the full picture. While in Europe in Formula One, Francesco may have been an undisputed champion, when it came to his rivalry with Lightning McQueen, he was unable to prove that he was the superior racer. The truth is that when Francesco had the opportunity to emerge victorious over the best race cars from across the globe, he couldn't make it happen. The claims he made were settled on the track, and he lost, even under the best conditions. I do respect the fact that even when Francesco came up short, he never resorted to playing dirty. Unlike Chick Hicks, he didn't cheat or crash cars or attempt to win at all costs. He kept the competition friendly and continued to show respect for the sport. But there's just no getting around the fact that when Francesco Bernoulli competed for glory, the only thing he proved to the world was that he was not better than Lightning McQueen. Consider following for more cars videos like this one. And finally, I'm Isaac Carlson. Thanks for watching, and have a magical day.